All the details from our correspondent Grace Lee, who's joining us live this hour from Tokyo. A very warm welcome to you, Grace. Now, more than 200 people have died with COVID-19 in the capital, Tokyo, we are being told, remains the worst affected area. Doctors are also warning of a collapse of the medical system in Japan. Give us a sense of ground zero since you are currently in Tokyo.
Well, here in Tokyo, you can see it's a bit of a gloomy day today, but the past couple of days have been very nice, and that's meant that a lot of people have been outdoors and enjoying picnics, and restaurants still remain open. So although the government's goal is to reduce human contact by about 80%, that seems like that goal might not be likely, according to experts, because of the fact that the restrictions are very lax and you don't get penalized if you do break the rules. So a lot of people are still going outside. Now, the most alarming part about Japan's number, now over 10,000 people infected, is the fact that that number has been reached through the doubling of coronavirus cases very rapidly. We saw the first coronavirus case here in Tokyo, here in Japan, 3 months back, and it took about 3 months to get to the 5,000 mark, and then it only took 9 days to get to 10,000 now. And most of those cases are now untraceable, meaning that there are cases spreading here without the government being able to track it. And that's been the number one kind of worry and concern for experts, who say that there is simply not a good hold on what's been happening here.
Right. So clearly the lack of social distancing measures, or the lack of strict social distancing measures, is something perhaps which is responsible for the spike. Now, Grace, Japan's virus response has also been criticized since it is now expanding its testing. Is this not a late move, considering countries have been at it since months now?
Absolutely. And really, the kind of criticism has been towards Japan's government for not doing enough. But a lot of medical experts say that Japan simply doesn't have the capacity to do so because they lack the manpower. They don't have enough doctors who are qualified to do these tests. And of course, there are also some speculation that the tests have been delayed due to the Olympics and the government wanting to move forward with that. Now, with that postponed, we are seeing those test numbers ramp up a little bit, but still Japan isn't really testing at the speed and rate as its neighbor South Korea has, and now other countries are catching up as well, and Japan is still very much behind. And I have spoken to a lot of folks here who are concerned not only about the testing but about the accessibility towards testing. You do have to jump through a lot of hoops to prove that you've been sick, you've been in contact with someone with COVID. It's not something that you can easily obtain, these tests. So there is worry that if you are sick, you are kind of left to your own devices, because it's very hard to get medical help here.
But it's interesting, Grace, that you mentioned the postponement of Olympics, because looking at the severity of the situation in Japan, health experts are wary that the country will not be ready to host Olympics even in the year 2021. Should Japan and the International Olympic Committee pay heed to the health experts and rethink their decision?
Well, seeing how much effort it took for them to postpone the Olympics to 2021 in the first place, I think it'll be a very long discussion between Japan and the IOC to talk about postponing it even further. I think they'll want to move ahead with that date for now. But of course, experts around the world are saying that these social distancing measures will have to stay in place, not only in Japan, but around the world for more than a year, maybe 2 years at best. So it does seem, it seems kind of unlikely that we'll see this kind of world event where people fly in from all different countries and cram into small stadiums to view the Olympics. So what happens next is a big question mark that I'm sure Japan and the IOC will be working very closely together to solve.
Absolutely. Nobody knows what's going to happen next. But Grace, Hokkaido was seen as a success story, a region that isolated the virus, leading to a huge drop in numbers. But Hokkaido is in the spotlight again as it struggles to deal with a second wave of infection. What lessons can Japan learn from Hokkaido?
Well, I think it's the classic case of reopening much too early. Hokkaido reported that it had its cases under control, and then just a few short weeks afterwards, it had to shut its doors again under a new state of emergency with the resurgence of more cases. And we are seeing the spread of more cases around Japan. In total, the hotspot is here in Tokyo, but there's worry that people here, now with the state of emergency, have been spooked, and a lot of people in Tokyo are traveling to other areas in Japan, spreading the disease. So with Hokkaido under another state of emergency, there is a lot of pressure on governors across Japan to try and keep the situation under control and not reopen too early like Hokkaido did.
Right. We hope that the Japanese government learns its lessons and, in fact, takes these social distancing measures more strictly and seriously. On that note, thank you so much, Grace Lee, for joining us on this broadcast and bringing us all the latest from Japan. Now, Google and Facebook may need to pay for news content in Australia. The Australian government is facing unprecedented losses in advertising revenue across platforms due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And our officials want tech titans to pay for original journalistic content which is consumed across their platforms. After all, content created by media outlets is shared and consumed across platforms like Google and Facebook extensively, and these tech giants end up taking a large share of online advertising revenue. Australia will compel Google and Facebook to pay media outlets for news content. Australia's Treasurer is calling for a level playing field and wants Facebook and Google to pay media companies for content. The country's competition watchdog, the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, or ACCC, has been ordered to create a code of conduct for these tech giants. In 2019, a digital platform inquiry within Australia found that Google and Facebook were raking in huge online revenues, though their content came from other media organizations. And now the Treasurer of Australia is demanding that the platforms pay up for the content through which they are making huge profits. Australian media organizations, like the rest of the world, have been hit hard by the economic fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic. Businesses have come to a grinding halt as lockdowns are enforced globally to curb the infection. From newspapers to TV channels, the media industry at large is facing a financial crunch. And Australian officials are demanding transparency in content sharing.
It's time the tech titans were held to account and we had genuine competition. We have a level playing field. We have more transparency. And we get payment for original journalistic content. The rise of the digital platforms, and in particular Google and Facebook, have delivered real and significant benefits to consumers. But it's also been a period of great disruption. And it's called into question the adequacy of our existing regulatory frameworks and the viability of traditional media outlets.
The Treasurer adds that the ACCC would release a draft with regulations for fair compensation of journalistic content across these platforms in July this year.